There was a time when her face was everywhere. Movie posters from the late 1980 seconds still hang in, forgotten theatre lobbies creased, sun faded, but one presence is missing from today's conversation: Mary Elizabeth Mastrantonio. In an era defined by excess and permanence, she stood at the center of some of Hollywood's most enduring films: Scarface, The Abyss, The Color of Money. For nearly a decade, from 1983 to 1991, she was not peripheral, she was essential. An Oscar-nominated actress, trusted by the most powerful directors of her generation, and then silence. While her contemporaries continued to circulate through sequels, retrospectives, and late-career reinventions, her name slowly slipped out of the frame. No scandal, no public collapse, no dramatic farewell. So what happened? Did she fail? Was she pushed aside? Or did she make a choice Hollywood wasn't prepared to understand? This story does not begin with her rise. It begins with her absence. Hollywood never treated Mary Elizabeth Mastrantonio as an accident. From the moment she entered the frame, she was cast carefully, deliberately into a rare archetype, not a sex symbol, not a fragile ingenue. She was presented as the intelligent woman, a strong, grounded female lead whose power came from restraint rather than spectacle. There was a seriousness Hollywood recognized immediately, a steady, low-register voice, a gaze that held tension without pleading for attention, a discipline that felt closer to theater than celebrity. In Scarface, her Gina Montana was not the center of the story, yet she functioned as its moral counterweight, an uncomfortable mirror to male violence. In The Color of Money, Carmen quietly controlled the psychological battlefield, a performance that earned her an Academy Award nomination without a single indulgent moment. By The Abyss, she embodied a new cinematic ideal: the female leader who endures intellectual, emotional, and physical extremes without surrender. Between 1983 and 1991, she worked consistently with filmmakers who defined seriousness itself: Brian De Palma, Martin Scorsese, James Cameron. The unspoken expectation was clear: a long, dominant career as Hollywood's thinking woman, perhaps even the next Sigourney Weaver. What she was cast to be, however, was not necessarily who she intended to remain. The moment of misalignment did not arrive with a scandal or a failure. It arrived quietly, almost politely, after Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves. By every measurable standard, this should have been the next acceleration point: a global studio release, a romantic lead, a clear invitation to continue as Hollywood's dependable, serious female star. The industry expected momentum. Instead, it encountered hesitation. For Mary Elizabeth Mastrantonio, the years following 1991 did not resemble a collapse. They resembled a refusal to perform the expected sequel of her own career. There were fewer major studio films. No calculated return to roles that echoed The Abyss or The Color of Money. No carefully engineered star-making vehicles designed to keep her image circulating at a fixed altitude. What followed looked unusual only because it defied Hollywood logic. Rather than capitalizing on visibility, she redirected her energy toward work that offered little public reward but demanded complete technical commitment. Broadway and the stage spaces where there are no close-ups to hide behind and no marketing campaigns to amplify a performance became central again. In productions like Man of La Mancha, portraying Aldonza, Dulcinea required vocal power, emotional endurance, and knightly precision. These were not roles built for headlines, they were roles built for survival through craft. Her screen work, when it appeared, became selective. Television was approached not as a platform for exposure, but as a controlled environment, contained arcs, serious material, characters with authority and restraint. There was no attempt to dominate a long-running series for visibility alone, no effort to reshape her public persona to fit shifting commercial tastes. This divergence revealed a deeper conflict. Hollywood requires continuity, constant presence, repeated reinvention, and ongoing conversation with the audience. Mastrantonio appeared to require something else entirely: space. Space to choose roles for their demands rather than their reach. Space to step away when the work no longer challenged her. Space to disappear without apology. Importantly, nothing forced this turn. There was no box office disaster to explain it away. No public breakdown, no industry exile. The path remained open. She simply stopped walking it. And so the question lingers, unresolved and deliberately uncomfortable. Was this a quiet refusal of the system? Or did the system, built to reward visibility over discipline, no longer have room for an artist like her? What followed was not an explanation, not a defense, not even a goodbye. After the moment she stepped out of alignment, Mary Elizabeth Mastrantonio offered Hollywood something it could neither market nor interpret: silence. There was no interview circuit designed to clarify her absence. No carefully worded profile explaining a change of priorities. No memoir reclaiming a narrative before others could write it for her. In an industry addicted to confession, she refused to speak, and the silence held. Weeks turned into years. The press, starved of scandal or reinvention, moved on. There was no comeback story to rehearse, no arc of downfall and redemption to package neatly for audiences. Without a quote, without a controversy, without a visible struggle, her disappearance became difficult to dramatize, so it was quietly ignored. Yet she did not vanish entirely. She answered, just not in words. When she appeared, it was selectively. Television dramas, not for exposure, but for precision. Roles defined by authority and restraint. Women who led rooms without raising their voices, whose power came from discipline rather than display. No nostalgic cameos, no winks at past glory. No self-referential performances meant to remind viewers who she once was. Each appearance resisted memory. Each role stood on its own weight. The stage became her refuge, not as a retreat, but as a controlled environment where craft mattered more than visibility. No spotlight large enough to distort the work, no headlines to dilute it. In theatre, value is measured in nights endured, not impressions generated. There, an actor is accountable only to the material, the ensemble, and the audience in the room. It is a place that demands presence and allows anonymity. Hollywood, meanwhile, waited for something else. An explanation, a reinvention, a public reckoning with the past. It expected her to narrate her absence, to justify her choices, to translate silence into content. She refused all of it. She did not recount her peak. She did not reframe her legacy. She did not ask to be remembered. In doing so, her silence became unmistakable, not as loss, but as position, a sustained refusal to participate in the economy of exposure, a decision to let absence speak louder than explanation. And as the years passed, the vanishing became complete, not because she stopped working, but because she stopped answering the question Hollywood kept asking. Why aren't you still here? She never responded. The story most people believe about Mary Elizabeth Mastrantonio is brief, tidy, and reassuringly familiar. She stepped back, her career slowed, the roles stopped coming, time moved on. It is a narrative Hollywood knows how to tell. When a woman no longer appears with predictable regularity, absence is translated as decline. Visibility becomes the primary metric. Success is reduced to accountable output. How many films, how many headlines, how many reminders that the audience should still care. Anything outside that frame is quietly excluded. What this story leaves out is almost everything that does not fit its convenience. Stage work, invisible to mass culture, is rarely acknowledged as continuity. Selective television roles are misread as compromise rather than choice. And a career without scandal, breakdown, or public struggle is assumed to lack narrative value altogether. The simplicity is useful. It requires no investigation, no patience, no uncomfortable questions about how success is measured or who gets to define it. The familiar arc of rise, fall, and possible comeback remains intact. Yet the gaps are conspicuous. If her career truly stalled, where was the collapse? If she was pushed aside, where was the moment of rejection? If she wanted back in, where was the desperate return? None of those moments exist. And so, the story we were told persists, not because it explains her path, but because it allows the system to move on without examining its own assumptions. Outside the main frame, Mary Elizabeth Mastrantonio did not disappear into absence. She entered a different rhythm, slower, quieter, and governed by intention rather than momentum. The work continued, but without the pressure to remain visible or to constantly reassert relevance. Projects were fewer, but each carried a clear purpose. The stage became central. Live performance offers no safety net, no edits, no retakes, no camera to soften the edges. Every night demands full presence. In that space, value is measured by discipline and endurance, by the ability to sustain truth in real time, For an actor trained in control and restraint, theatre was not an escape, it was a return to fundamentals. Television functioned as an in-between space. Her roles, when chosen, reflected gravity rather than reach. Authority figures, complex mothers, women whose morality was neither clean nor theatrical. These characters did not dominate headlines, but they carried weight. They asked to be observed, not celebrated. Equally deliberate was what she kept out of view. Her private life was never converted into currency. There were no reality appearances, no memoirs, no circuit of nostalgic talk shows designed to preserve a brand. Exposure was not treated as a requirement. What emerged was a rare form of freedom, not romantic, not idealized, but real. The freedom to step away, to appear only when the work justified it, to exist outside the expectations of constant consumption. Beyond the frame, the career did not vanish. It simply stopped asking to be seen. In the end, the question is not about disappearance, but definition. What does it mean for a career to be called successful? Is it measured by constant presence, by the obligation to remain visible, searchable, and endlessly renewed? Or is success something quieter, the ability to refuse appearances that no longer serve the work? The paradox of Mary Elizabeth Mastrantonio lies here. She faded from the spotlight, yet never left the profession. While others are compelled to reintroduce themselves again and again, she accepted the risk of being forgotten in exchange for control over her time, her roles, her silence. Nothing about that choice demands admiration. It offers no lesson, no moral. It simply stands as an alternative. Perhaps she lost a version of a great career, one built on permanence and repetition, or perhaps she preserved something rarer, the authority to step out of the frame without being erased by it. The story began with an empty image, a familiar face no longer present. Now that frame remains empty but no longer feels incomplete. The absence is no longer a loss. It is a decision left deliberately unanswered.